the city has lots of people who are involved in that little cartel. And what they do is that they rent those apartments crossing the street. And when they jump, the people who jump already have the key to the apartments, and they go into the houses, and the law enforcement can't go in, and they have
Without like a
permission.
okay,
So
they
what
need a warrant and all that.
yeah, so there's a set of apartments who were really famous for doing that. This used to be the biggest shelter, and right here in this gate, you would see all of the different immigrants sitting right here looking for work.
So this is likely to become
A shelter for people who
okay.
live in the streets.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mexicali. This will be the site of our next couple of videos. I'm right here at the border. This is Mexicali West. And that's where the border walker crossers come from. I've got the border wall right behind me. Wanted to give you a sense of what's on the other side of a lot of the larger Mexican city of Mexicali, and that is Imperial Valley farmland. So I'm probably about midway through town on obviously the north side. The town of Calexico is pretty small, and that's the urban center on the other side. As I go farther to the west, we'll start seeing Calexico show up. But east of Calexico, you got a lot of these fields that are the location where you have a lot of this migrant traffic up and over the fence, drugs, etc. So I just wanted to give everybody a sense of what this looked like. The neighborhoods over on this side. Seeing a lot of walls with barbed wire, with spikes. Pretty much everything's barred up and has fencing put up over it. So it being election season here in Mexico, we've got a big nationwide election on June 2nd. We're seeing a lot of these candidate signs pop up. So this one, Norma Bustamante, we can see that she is president for the municipal government of Mexicali, and she's running on the Marina ticket. So this is going to be the same political ticket as Claudia Sheinbaum, and she is quite a ways ahead in the polls. It's getting into mid-May, so we're going to have these elections here in a few weeks. And she's, whoa, there are so many dogs. Hey, buddy. Usually they don't shock you if you can keep an eye out for them, but here I am paying attention to the camera and watching where I'm going, these being Mexican streets after all. So anyway, elections coming up in a few weeks here, so candidates are kind of making their last push for those last minute votes. So this is likely to become
a shelter for people who live in the streets.
Huh,
And
right
as
on.
you can see, people have forced themselves in.
Yeah.
And the owners fight back with those little arrangements.
Okay.
But
Gotcha.
people who don't have the information to shelters and to where to seek help, they end up looking for those little environments where people are not going to go in.
Yep.
And they're not going to get bothered by police. And as you can see, the police is really active in downtown.
Yeah. You see them there on the bikes.
There's a lot of crime that consists of illegal immigrants crossing the border, because the border, as you can see, it's right there.
Mm-hmm.
And the city has lots of people who are involved in that little cartel. And what they do is that they rent those apartments crossing the street, and when they jump, the people who jump already have the key to the apartments, and they go into the houses, and the law enforcement can't go in, and they
without
have a permission.
Okay,
So
they need a warrant and all that.
Yeah, so there's a set of apartments who were really famous for doing that.
Okay.
And what they did is that the apartments, when they were built, there was a storage room that was built outside of the apartment complex, and the storage room, it would get locked by the inside. So people who would cross, they would go to the storage room and they would lock themselves in.
Yeah.
So there was no way for the border patrol to kick them out or to have a hold of them.
Wow. Okay.
So let's walk.
Crazy. Okay. And this is Renee. He's going to show us one of the shelters that's real close to the Calexico West border crossing. So Renee is a graffiti aficionado, and Mexicali is a hot spot for artistic graffiti.
As you can see right here, there's lots of different graffiti artists, but the kind of paper that they use is like this one is imported from China, and it's called eggshell. And those little things are the things that you get to see in this city, because people really invest in the graffiti scene out here in the border. So it's really interesting.
Okay, now because we're kind of in the Chinatown area, does that have anything to do with the types of graffiti that we might be seeing in this part of town?
So basically what we get to see in this area when it comes to graffiti, it's a lot of people from California who come down, and when they have vacations in the summer or in the winter, that's when you get to see the most activity here. For example, right there, DHS, they come from San Diego, and they do have some in Tijuana, but it's a group of people who invest their time and money to operate their graffiti in the whole border section.
Okay, and you said that there's some people locally who are traveling to places like San Diego or San Luis to get their graffiti out.
To spread the culture of graffiti, and basically that's what they live for.
Okay.
They invest their whole time and money to keep the culture of graffiti in the communities. But when they do that, they select a section of the city where they think it's proper for them to continue with the work.
Okay.
Here's someone from San Francisco. He's called Plant Trees, and he came as well here to the downtown part of Mexicali. As you can see right there, that's Mexicali Rose. That's the nickname that Mexicali's downtown has due to the history with the Chinese.
Okay.
So basically that comes from flourishing.
Yeah.
From a place that came from nothing in the desert, and now we have big concrete jungles.
Okay, so the graffiti isn't necessarily something that's gang oriented or cartel oriented. This is local art.
Yes, so these are people who went to school to study for graphic design, for advertisement, for marketing, and since right here there's a big culture for graffiti, they turned that way. Okay.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, passing some fairly loud music here.
So I know I do a lot of jaywalking, but this is how people walk the streets out here.
Okay, when in Rome.
Yep. Exactly. So right now we're walking towards a shelter that used to be the biggest one in the area.
Okay.
But when people from Haiti, when they got hit with the big earthquake, lots of them immigrated to this part of town, and lots of them started to seek shelters. And one of the biggest shelters that helped them or helped that community was the one that we're going to go to right now.
Okay.
But due to the high demand, people started to go to other shelters because this one was always full and their attention wasn't given to everyone.
Okay.
Since they had all the rooms filled.
Okay. Now, as far as you know, do the migrants tend to come in surges, or is it more of just kind of a steady filtering in of people?
So basically, each family gets here as they can.
Mm-hmm.
Family members can consist of 3 to 5 members, and basically you see them roaming individually in their families, but you don't see big groups gathering together to work together for their common goal. Basically, families get separated and they start looking for ways to survive. And what they end up doing is looking for shelters that are around the downtown area for them to seek water, a bed, food, medical attention. And most of them have really young kids, so their need for shelter is really high.
So they might have come initially as a bigger family group, but then started to split apart just because it's easier to find resources, places to stay. Okay.
Yes, and for people who've been here for a long time, you get to see them by themselves. They lost their family, they lost their friends due to the same situation.
Okay.
So we're here.
Okay.
Okay, so this used to be the biggest shelter, all this building. And due to the inefficient requirements that they had, it got built into something else. And this is really new. This wasn't here 3 months ago.
Oh.
This just got built.
Okay.
And now it's the water service. So if you want to come pay your water service, you come here. I wasn't aware of this. This is really new.
Okay.
This used to be the biggest shelter. And right here in this gate, you would see all of the different immigrants sitting right here looking for work, looking that way, reaching out to people for them to help them out in any way.
Wow. Okay. So you think that what may have happened now is that the folks have either moved across the border or they've gone out and are staying in other spots.
So let's keep going.
Okay. Right on.
Okay, so as you can see, the government took this building away and turned it into an office. So now it's even harder for people to look for shelter.
Okay, so Mexicali has had problems making sure that there's enough vacant space to be able to house migrants as they're coming in.
Yes.
And it looks like now they're potentially even repurposing some of the buildings that had been oriented towards looking after the migrants. Okay.
Yeah. One of the major points when it comes to the government is that they want to make this downtown area of Mexicali more visible to tourists.
Okay.
So the immigrants who ended up here looking for shelter would scare away the tourists, and that would take away the investment that the people who travel to Mexicali would bring. So basically, as you can see, they brought artists from all over the country. The one that you're looking at right now is local. His name is Rodrigo Villa, and he's one of the biggest artists. So basically, the government is inputting more money into infrastructure and into art to bring more tourists into this area.
Okay.
So you will see more police, you will see more art, you will see more different investments like in restaurants, hotels, in different bars.
Okay.
But in reality, when it comes to the shelters that we used to have in this area, as you saw moments ago, they were taken away because they scare off the
Migrants are bad for business.
Exactly.
They
So
make people feel uncomfortable.
Insecure. But in reality, they're looking for a secure place to stay at as well as we do.
Right. Wow, that's fascinating. So
That's graffiti from LA.
okay.
So they came all the way to Mexicali on a tour. They are right now in Ecuador.
Oh,
and they
okay.
started out here in Mexicali.
Look at that. Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy that you can recognize all of this graffiti on site.
Yes.
And know, oh, I know who that is. That's great. So do you do any type of like website work or to help document some of what's happening graffiti wise?
So what I do is that normally you will find me here walking around with my camera or my cell phone, and when I take all of these pictures, since I studied graphic design, I end up doing magazines that I sell throughout the border for people who are interested in the documentation of different graffiti in the border.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, if you have anything online, I would love to link that at the bottom of whatever video this winds up getting posted to.
Nice. Yes.
Okay.
I'll try to send you the link.
Okay.
That way you can check it out. So right now, right here, this is another big investment. This started this year, and it's the Chinesca sign.
Okay.
So basically what they're doing, once again, is they're gentrifying this area for more tourists to come by.
Okay.
So now we're going to walk to one of the parks that holds lots of immigrants and lots of people who are homeless.
Awesome. Okay, so you had been telling me about a story of a couple of Colombian migrants that you had met here recently, and actually heard you say something surprising, which is that they had claimed that they had ridden the train in the southern part of the country, and that it sounded like that was becoming a more common way of getting north, maybe from Chiapas up to somewhere, kind of middle of the state of the country. After which point, did they tell you how they traveled through the rest of it?
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, they start their commute with walking.
Okay.
So they walked through the jungle, and they told me a story where they had to travel a big cliff that was filled with rocks, and it was crazy to see that under the cliff there was lots of clothing of people who are trying to make their way through Mexico in order to reach the United States. But unfortunately, lots of people who do that walk don't have the ability or the health to pull it through.
Okay.
And some of the clothing that you get to see on the bottom of the cliff is from people who passed away from falling down.
Oh, wow.
So it's a really dangerous walk.
Yeah.
And from there, they get to the train. And in the train, what they do is that they seek these holes that are between the wagons, and they put themselves in the hole for them to avoid being seen by authorities. Now, the Army of Mexico, the military, has knowledge about the different checkpoints or the different stations where they stop by in order to look for them. And if they do get them, they rob them, they take their money away if they do have some, or they take them to jail.
Okay. Wow. So they had made their way through all of this, and you met them actually in Imperial Valley or in Calexico?
So basically, when I met them, they were looking for transportation because they were lied to about receiving shelter in the Imperial County, when in reality, they were part of a big movement where the hotels transport different immigrants in order to fill their rooms with clients. So they are basically charging them with the room, with transportation, and they are taking them to other regions without their acknowledgement.
Is this a way for the hotels to be getting maybe more money from state resources or national disaster money?
Yeah, so basically what they are doing is that they are getting involved with different entities who help out the immigrant community, but in reality what they are doing is that they are creating a business where they are using the migrants' money in order to them to pay for the room, and not only that, they pay for a bus where they don't know where they're taking them, and they are working in collaboration with different regions in order to make a circle for them to travel around without having a place to stay in reality.
Wow, that's crazy.
It
So they
is.
just kind of get taken from hotel to hotel to hotel.
Yes.
They don't really know what's happening, but federal
Exactly.
money is coming in to reimburse the hotels for the stays, and the migrants are just kind of getting moved. Wow, that's crazy.
Exactly.
So these are generally then people who have passed their credible fear interview. They're waiting to eventually get their day in court to be able to get asylum, and essentially they can't work for the first 6 months
Exactly.
in the U.S., and so they just get carted from hotel to hotel.
And the worst part is that they are looking for a job, but they can't because they don't have the right permission. So in order for them to keep their permission to stay in the States, they cannot look for a job. And what they end up doing is that they create a communication line with their family members back in Latin America, and they start sending them money. But it's a rabbit hole where they can't work, they can't pay for a hotel, they can't pay for the resources, and they end up bargaining with the different hotels in order to get the breakfast, to get the transportation for a little cost, which is what they can afford.
Wow. Okay. You had also said that eventually, at least some of them, given how expensive it is to be in San Diego and Imperial Valley, they'll come back to Mexicali?
So what they do is that since the cost of living is really low in the Mexican border, what they do is that they seek an employment out here for them to sustain themselves in their way of living. So to give you a little preview of how things cost, to pay a month worth of light in your light bill in the United States, you will end up paying $200. But with $200, you can pay internet service, you can pay your cell phone, you can pay water, gas, light. So the price of things are much lower out here, and they end up moving back to Mexico because that's what they can pay, that's what they can afford.
Okay, so they're getting money from family members in Latin America. They can't afford to stay in the United States for that initial 6 months where they can't work. And so what you're seeing is they're making their way south back to Mexicali to wait out those 6 months before they can legally work in the U.S.
Exactly.
Man, that's crazy.
That's how they can afford water.
Okay.
That's how they can afford food.
Yeah.
That's how they can afford the quality of life that they're looking for.
Okay. Wow. That's really incredible. That's, I mean, I know you've got a foot on both sides of the border, so you get to see a whole lot of this, as well as crossing the border every day and talking to a lot of people.
So let's get a view of this place. So this is called the Plaza de Mariachis. And right here, basically, this is a center where lots of immigrants gather in the morning, and lots of different entities come here to give them food, water, information. And one of the key points why they gather here is because over there they have the transportation system in order to move to other cities that are around.
Okay.
So it's for a low cost. It's called Terminal Kilómetro 4, and from there they can move to other cities where they can also seek for job opportunities, which are near the maquilas.
Okay.
And if they don't get to travel from here, they end up staying and they look for a place to sleep.
I see.
And all around here, it's filled with alleys, and they basically end up going to the alleys and sleeping in those areas. Something that really helps them out, which comes around this area, is that there's a lot of tourists that when they come here to buy different party items like piñatas, candies, and stuff like that, they end up giving them money to people who are in need. So this is a really hot point for immigrants who stay here for a couple of hours and then they try to seek shelter. And if the shelters that are around are filled or they don't exist anymore, like the one we saw already, they end up living in the streets.
Okay, so at night, you're not going to find them here in the park?
No, you're
They get chased away by the police?
Yes, so basically over there you can see that there's a policeman standing right there. So there's always people here who are taking care of the park. It's not in the best conditions, but when it comes to security, you will always see law enforcement around, and they can come here really quick, and they will solve any problem.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so essentially in all of the alleys around here, we're likely to find migrants who have camped out, and they're kind of waiting for their chance to cross the border.
Exactly.
Now, are they waiting to, trying to figure out information for how to do it themselves, or is this kind of something where they're waiting for the right coyote to get the right price to be able to get them across?
Exactly. So when it comes to the coyote system, it's basically when they start having relationships with the mafia, and out here the cartel are involved with all the coyotes. And basically, since we're really close to the border, crossing the border is really simple for them, since there's lots of systems that have already been invented and they have been placed in use for them to cross. One of them I already mentioned before, which is using the apartments that are near the border for immigrants to cross and insert themselves into any secure place that is already part of the cartel. But it's a really easy access for them to go to the United States through this area. So they basically wait here until they have the sufficient money or it's the proper time for them to cross. Most of the time when they cross, they have the guidance and the tools of the coyotes, which is a ladder and a rope, and from there they are on their own.
Okay, once they get into the U.S. It's like, okay,
that's
fly
the
free, little bird.
Exactly. So they don't get no more help. And that's when they start seeking help from other entities, most commonly nonprofits, who are like the Brown Bag Coalition in Calexico, who gives them food on a weekly basis, and other entities who like to help out in a more human way.
So they have a general idea once they get across kind of where to go to find some of this profit help.
Exactly. So basically it works exactly the same as here. They try to look for the nearest parks, and most of the parks in the border are filled with homeless or immigrants, either illegal or legal immigrants. But basically what they're looking for is a safe place to stay. Even though there's no roof or there's no access to food or water, they just want to have a calm environment where they're not going to be hostage of violence or getting mugged by police, as they've been through their whole journey until they get here.
Right. Okay. I have 1 million more questions, but let's save that until Monday when we chat on Zoom.
Yeah, for sure.
Renee, holy crap, thank you. Thank you so much.
Sure. I'm glad to help.
This is fantastic to see stuff on the street. I see some graffiti over here across the way. Do we know who this is?
Serac, and then we have Levis. Oh yes, I know them. So I don't know them personally, but I identify them, and they are part of the outskirts, mainly on the San Felipe Road, which takes you to the other cities that are around Mexicali. So basically they live in the outskirts, but most probably they came here because most of the popular bars and the nightlife is located right here. And you get all kinds of different schemes, from really expensive places like restaurants and bars to really cheap ones. So you will get a whole environment of different society, people who like to look for fun. And that's one of them.
Okay, so they'll come, they'll do some drinking, and then go do some tagging.
And then they go back to their houses in the outskirts of Mexicali. Most of the people do the same, but people who come from California. So they come here, they party, they do whatever they can in the United States, and then they go back. So it's the same dynamic.
Mexicali has a reputation as a place where Californians will come to party, do maybe some of the stuff that's illegal in California. Okay.
Yeah, so right here, when it comes to law enforcement, they usually give you a warning first. So that gives permission to people to get away with different things because they know that the first time they will get out with a warning and probably a small fee.
Right, bride. Propina.
Yes, so a bride. Yes, normally that fee stays within the cop who pulled you over or who was part of that conversation.
Okay. Again, I've got a million questions. Renee, thank you so much. We will talk to you very soon.
No, it's amazing.
So I had a fantastic tour there with Renee. I'm back here at the border. I'm obviously not going to cross because I'm staying here in Mexicali tonight. But wow, after we shut the camera off, I wound up wandering around town. Renee showed me a bunch more spots. The underground area under Chinatown, which has a bunch of history. Apparently the Chinese food here in Mexicali is amazing. So there is a ton more to explore here. We're going to be talking to Renee again. We've decided that we're going to come back and maybe in a month or two when I'm back in Mexicali, do another walk through town with him. We'll talk more graffiti, talk more history, what's happening with migration and cartels and all the craziness in this big border town. I'm looking forward to doing that. Also, I'll be chatting with him about what's going on in Mexicali as well. Calexico, the other side, because he spends a significant amount of time in both, works in both. I won't give away his position or what he does there, but it's important enough that he knows what's happening in terms of policy, and what he can see happening there on a daily basis is quite fascinating. So I can't wait to share that with everybody. And I'll be staying in Mexicali for another day. So I'll be back here at the Frontera, the border crossing. I'll see what kind of trouble I can get into. See if there's some folks I can interview. So until then,